Sweden has been called the loneliest country in the world. It's a sparsely populated country in the far north, well known for its natural beauty and for winter depression. It's a country filled with polite but introverted people. It's also the country with the highest number of single households in the world. Today I want to talk about what life is like in Sweden. Let's have a look at what it's really like to live in the loneliest country in the world. First of all, is Sweden actually the loneliest country in the world? Well, that's pretty difficult to say, isn't it? What's the definition of loneliness? How do you measure it? There are two different meanings when talking about loneliness. The feeling of being lonely and being lonely in a more objective sense. I'll try to cover a bit of both in this video. Loneliness, as in feeling lonely, is an emotion, so it's difficult to quantify. But there are some parts of it that are measurable. Being on your own, solitude, not having a partner, and so on. And you can also look at aspects like isolation and remoteness. And even if it's a bit anecdotal, you can also weigh in what people feel. Are people reporting that they feel lonely in Sweden? And the answer to that is yes, Swedes feel lonely, and foreigners who move to Sweden report feeling isolated and alone. It's difficult to make friends in Sweden. It's easy to find acquaintances, but not friends. And many people who move to Sweden are surprised at how standoffish Swedes are. Sure, Swedes are happy to talk to you and hang out a bit, but getting to the next level is hard. Moving to a new city often means that you become more isolated. You can find new groups of people to hang out with, but you often have to nestle your way into an existing friend group. And those friends have likely known each other for dozens and dozens of years. It's not impossible though. Swedes are social creatures just like everyone else. Just a bit less so than many other cultures. When talking about the loneliest countries in the world, people often focus on single household statistics. If you search online, you'll find plenty of lists where Sweden is either at the top of the list or at least in the top 4. Depending on the source, Sweden has between 41 and 50% single households. The other top contenders are, unsurprisingly, Norway, Finland and Denmark. Some lists also include Germany or the UK or Japan as well, but those countries typically have below 40% single households. And all of the Nordics have more than 40%. But that's a pretty narrow way to define loneliness. It can actually be argued that it has nothing to do with loneliness at all. People in Sweden are still in relationships and they still have close friends and family connections. They just move away from home at an early age. That age is increasing though, with higher costs of living and housing shortages. Housing shortages in the places where people want to live, I should say. If you want to live up north, you'll have no problem finding a house. Either way, all of Scandinavia and the Nordics have a high number of single households. That's because there's a great sense of individualism here, and we value our freedom. Freedom to choose how we live our lives, not freedom like Americans define it, having guns and SUVs. And we appreciate our parents and relatives, but we don't want to be dependent on them. Swedes value their independence, and the strong gender equality up here also means that more women live alone. And of course, we have a strong social safety net that helps us move away from home and build a life for ourselves. So I wouldn't say that single households is a good metric to define loneliness. If anything, it's a metric of freedom and independence instead. Let's get back to the topic of whether or not Sweden really is the loneliest country in the world. If single households isn't a good way to measure it, then most of the top lists online become pretty useless. All of them focus on single households because it's a simple, tangible thing to measure. But simple isn't always good, as anyone who's read Of Mice and Men should know. Loneliness is too complex to wrap up in a simple metric like that. People sometimes talk about 4 different types of loneliness. Objective loneliness is the easiest part, that's the things we can measure. Single households, or how often do you spend time with friends or family, and things like that. And from an objective point of view, Sweden is one of the loneliest countries in the world, if not the loneliest. Swedes live alone, and they don't spend as much time with family as other cultures. And there are no generational households at all in Sweden, like in Southern Europe. That's a very foreign concept up here. But there's also other types of loneliness, romantic and emotional loneliness, for example. That's not an area where Sweden tops the list. Brazil, India and Turkey report more loneliness of that kind, for example. And so does Ireland and the US. And then there's also subjective loneliness, if you feel lonely. It's possible to be physically alone but not feel lonely. Swedes are objectively lonely but not subjectively lonely. Or, well, yeah, I mean, sure, they are. There's tons of lonely people, but not more so than in other countries. But then there's one more type of loneliness. Existential loneliness is a feeling of being separated from others, of not having connections and sensing a meaningless in it all. And that's unfortunately an area where Sweden does rank high. Maybe we need to dig a little bit deeper into that topic in particular. Life in Sweden can be lonely. I mentioned that foreigners moving to Sweden often have a hard time finding social groups to hang out with. It's easy to talk to Swedes, and it's easy to be charmed by the perceived openness at first. But Swedes are layered, like onions. The first layer is the silent and introverted exterior. That's the stereotype people often have about Swedes. But as soon as you engage with a Swedish person, you'll notice the friendly and polite layer underneath that. Swedes won't reach out to you, but they're happy to engage if you're the one to initiate contact. Then you'll find a polite and nice person who'll be happy to talk to you and help you get around. There are tons of people online who express their surprise at how friendly Swedes are, as long as you're the one to start talking to them. This is also the layer you see at work or at other social activities. But there are more layers after that. You'll sense a certain politeness, a certain distance in this layer. They're happy to spend time with you, but it's just casual. If you want to get even closer, you either need to spend a lot of time with a Swede or get them drunk. That's the layer of the onion where Swedes start opening up about themselves. And oh boy, do they open up. Now you'll suddenly hear all about their messy divorce or their parents' struggles with cancer. When you get to this point, it's easy to be fooled that you've made a friend, but that's not the case. You're still an acquaintance at this point, a bit closer, but still just an acquaintance. So how do you get to the next layer after that? Well, that's the difficult part. You need an intense personal connection, you need to spend a lot of time, and this process can take years. This means that people have a very small core group of true friends, if they have any at all. And this can often lead to a sense of existential loneliness, where you notice how few people that are really close to you. There are other countries that have this same sense of existential loneliness for various reasons. Brazil, the UK, and parts of Eastern Europe, for example. And it's tempting to think that this type of loneliness is rampant in all of Scandinavia and the Nordics. But that's not really true. Maybe I should clarify that a bit. It's true in most cases. Finland and Norway report high levels of loneliness, just like Sweden. But there's one country that sticks out like a sore thumb in this group of depressed Scandinavians, or depressed Nordic people I should say, and that's Denmark. Danes apparently don't feel the same type of existential loneliness as the Swedes, even if we're really close and share a lot of culture. Some think that it's because of the Danish hygge culture. Hygge is a Danish word that means coziness and feeling comfortable. It's a focus on contentment and well-being and instilling a sense of everyday togetherness. Swedes sometimes compare it with fika, but that's pretty far off. Fika is a cozy social interaction between friends or colleagues, but it's pretty limited. Fika is concentrated to a specific time, and it can feel a bit artificial or forced, especially at work. Hygge, on the other hand, seems to be something that permeates Danish culture. It's not restricted to a specific time or place. Instead, you can feel hygge in all aspects of life. Denmark also has a closer connection to Germany and continental Europe in general. That could be another reason why Danes differ from Swedes in this regard. And speaking of proximity to continental Europe, or the lack thereof, let's talk about Sweden's isolated geography as well. Sweden lies far in the north, and it's not a place that many people visit. Or at least they didn't used to. These days it's pretty easy to just hop on a plane and get to Stockholm from anywhere in the world. But even these days, Sweden isn't seen as Europe proper. Scandinavia and the Nordics are their own thing. It's even pretty separate from Northern Europe. Depending on how you define that term, of course, but Germany and the Netherlands often steal that term. And Sweden used to be even more isolated, a country in the far north, far away from all the events in the rest of Europe. It makes sense that Swedes became more isolated and more introverted in an environment like this. And it's not just Sweden's location compared to the rest of Europe. It's also Sweden's geography inside the country. Sweden is a relatively big country by area. It's the 5th biggest country in Europe by area, but it's the 14th biggest by population. Out of 49 countries in Europe, Sweden is at place 43 when it comes to population density. And those numbers are today. Sweden has historically been much more sparsely populated. Sweden also lies in the far north, where winters are harsh and you need to struggle to survive. Those factors have created a culture that focuses on self-sufficiency and individualism. Swedes place a high value on privacy and solitude. People find comfort in meaningful interactions instead of small talk, and they focus on close social circles. Quietness isn't seen as rudeness in Sweden, it's respect for personal space. For hundreds of years, Swedes lived in small isolated farming communities, and they relied on their immediate circle for survival. Interaction with strangers was seen as risky and often unnecessary. What could they offer you that you didn't have at home? Was it really worth the risk of inviting them in? The winters are long and cold, and you need to ensure that you have everything you need by yourself. No one else will help you if food runs out, so you need to be self-sufficient if you want to survive. That's not exactly an environment that invites social interaction. And if strangers are seen as a potential risk rather than a positive thing, then you learn to not approach people unnecessarily. And likewise, it's a sign of respect that you don't reach out to others unless you really need something. You don't want to disturb them, make them worried, so the proper thing to do is to stay silent and leave them alone. Now, all of this is of course ancient history by now. Sweden isn't a frozen wasteland with isolated villages. Or, well, technically it sort of is. It's still extremely sparsely populated, but not to the same degree as hundreds of years ago. And people today don't need to worry about disturbing others or feel that it's risky to reach out to strangers. But it's difficult to change a culture that's built up over thousands of years. Sweden is changing though, slowly, but it's changing. So, given all of this, is Sweden the loneliest country in the world? Yes and no. In some aspects it is, but in others it isn't. Objectively speaking, Sweden is one of the loneliest countries in the world. Especially if you travel up north, where you have both geographic and social loneliness. And Swedes often feel a sense of existential loneliness. It's easy to feel despair and hopelessness today, especially if you don't have close friends that can help you. If I had been sponsored, this would have been a perfect segue into an online psychologist or something like that, but I'm not. Swedes, just like everyone else, feel hopelessness sometimes, like life has no meaning. In some countries you battle that by confiding in friends and family, but many Swedes keep it inside instead. There's no way to measure this kind of loneliness. I think that Sweden might be a bit worse off than many other countries, but I'm not sure. I can imagine that it's just as difficult to find someone to share all your problems with in a small town in Nebraska as in Kiruna in Sweden. It could be a bit more difficult in Sweden because of the Swedish onion layer effect, but I wouldn't bet on it. But when it comes to romantic loneliness and subjective loneliness, Sweden isn't worse off than other places. In fact, Swedes often feel much less lonely than other cultures. We value our privacy and our personal space. It's not a sad thing that we live by ourselves. We pity the people who share large households. I couldn't imagine living with my relatives or having my friends or family closer than they are. I love you all, but please stay where you are. Let's keep a little bit of a distance. I think that the Swedish independence and freedom is a marvelous thing, and we have our objective so-called loneliness to thank for it. So I guess that in some ways Sweden is the loneliest country in the world, but we wouldn't have it any other way. And that's all I have to say about the Swedish loneliness. I hope you found it interesting. Now go away, leave me alone. Nah, don't leave me alone. Watch another one of my videos instead. Either way, like and subscribe, but most importantly, have a great day.